Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business. We have another special guest. I've been lining them up for the last month. This is Jack. Now, Jack and myself, we met at the UNESCO. I'm going to call it a meeting. I don't quite know what else to call it. Let's call it a meeting of minds, Jack.
Let's do that.
That
Yeah.
feels like quite special then.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting time, those spending 2 days there and kind of thrashing out like the benefits of tuition, but also versus like the negative side, which I think I was quite shielded from until we met on those 2 days. But in particularly, you shared quite a lot of stories which I resonated with on a really high level. And I just think the whole 2 days was about equity. And I thought what you brought to the table over the 2 days was really special. And we connected on LinkedIn after, which has led us to have an interesting conversation, almost like a mind-blowing meeting around AI just before Christmas. And I just really want to share your knowledge with the people who I connect with. So welcome, Jack. It's an absolute pleasure. Tell us a little bit about yourself, mate.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I like mind blowing. I don't know whether, I'm that heavy teacher in my school because I am a teacher. And I'm that heavy teacher is the one who is like pushing AI at the lunch hall and everyone's kind of rolling their eyes. That is me currently at it. But mind blowing is nice to hear. I'm from the UK originally, trained PGCE at Exeter. I taught in the Southwest, but then I was a competitive surfer as well, actually.
Right.
And I got sick of the cold winters. So I escaped and I've lived in the Canary Islands for the last 12 years or so, and I'm settled. Here is home. And I teach at an international British school of Gran Canaria, in Gran Canaria. And I love it. I've come from a background of teaching, and I suppose that's where we were talking education, everyone in my family. And I know everyone says this in startups to podcasts about education, but everyone is. My mum is, my dad is, my grandma, my granddad, my uncle, my cousin, literally, and now my partner, wife, she's a deputy head. So like education is absolutely everything. I joke, but family Christmases, if we do, which we didn't get together, they're pretty boring talking about yeah.
But probably for the people like watching or listening to this, Jack, it's their ideal situation is to sit down and chat about those kind of things. So I'm not sure whether it would be boring or not. I quite like it. And my sister-in-law is a teacher, and often we just like find a little corner and talk about education, and I quite love that.
and quite a lot of moaning as well, because like a good moan,
bit of venting.
That's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it. So then I didn't add. So then on top of that, as well as being a teacher, about 2.5 years ago, I thought I'd set up what's now Ecmtutors. I set up a company registered in the UK, and it was a tutoring industry, but a tutoring industry with a twist, which we'll perhaps come on to. But on those words of equity, basically trying to get free tutoring to as many people with an authentic need as possible, starting in Spain, where I was, and then it's grown and expanded, and now we're running it and getting collaborations in Africa and schools that are newly connected. So nice things along the way, but a lot of lessons learned along the way as well, and keeps me very, very busy. And then become, as we said, meeting at UNESCO, along the way, it's kind of raised my personal profile, I guess. And because of time constraints of being a full-time teacher, I've got a young son as well, running this company, which got quite big. Then I threw myself into AI as kind of an efficiency shortcut that I needed, and discovered it was just so much more than that. And I've become obsessed, I think obsessive by nature, obsessed with it. And then that's kind of raised me to, well, the title, I suppose, that they got me at UNESCO was expert. But that's nonsense, really. I don't think there are experts in AI. But I would quite like the title of expert in the fact that I don't come from the expert title of computing. I'm not computing background. I'm geography originally, humanities, and now business studies as well. And I think that's lovely that you can get, and I think that may confuse a lot of people, you can get the title of expert without being computer background. And I think that's really key in my message. And so I was invited to UNESCO as, I suppose, an expert in tutoring and AI. And that's interesting because I'm not computer literate. Yeah, I'm all right with computers, but I'm no specialist in it. So there we go. A waffle of an intro. I don't know what that makes
the raising of your personal profile, is that been driven through LinkedIn? Is that where you started sharing these kind of things?
Yeah, pretty much. And reluctantly, that when I set up this company, And I mainly now, I started as humanities teacher and I mainly teach business studies. And this is something I think we're going to go on to. But I thought you learn so many lessons along the way, as I'm sure you do. So,
Mm.
but I thought I could kind of facelessly do this thing. I could sit in the background, use all the knowledge I've got from textbooks, and I could, keep a nice low profile. And you just can't, can you? You've got to have it. That's what I learned along the way. It's like, you know what? I've got to get used to doing podcasts. I've got to talk. And I was so nervous, so reluctant, and did everything to avoid it. And then one day I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, and if I'm coming to the idea of helping people, then I need to be a little bit braver and I need to put myself out there, which is a scary thing,
Mm.
especially when you say you've got a Facebook group. Putting yourself out on Facebook is the scariest place of all.
Do you reckon?
But oh God, some of the tutoring sites when I was trying to launch that, God, I get
Right.
attacked on
Oh,
those.
really?
So
Oh, gosh.
I,
What,
I
because
did
it's for
when I was
free,
when,
Jack?
yeah, they were brutal. When I was
Mm.
trying to say, hey, I'm offering free because that's what I was doing. You're not offering free. I'm like, I am. I am
Yeah.
offering. Like it's free. I just attack. Oh, and why do you think it should be free? And it's peer tutoring. So,
Free is
but
the
then you
hardest
learn
thing to
clickbait.
sell.
Sorry, I'm talking over you.
Free is the hardest thing to sell.
And biggest lesson I learned.
Yeah.
Biggest lesson. Wow. Could you have told me that 2.5 years
Oh,
ago?
yeah, we should have connected, mate. Should have connected.
Wow.
I just think in general that let's just like pause on this a minute because like the whole social enterprise kind of business model is a very
Yeah.
tricky one, isn't it? Like particularly with something like tuition. And I talk to a lot of tutors and just
Mm.
teachers in general. And one of the things that most of us agree with, not everybody, because not everybody kind of comes from this background, but
Yeah.
working with families who are deprived, they might be living in poverty. The ones that we would probably target in our heads, the ones in school, and we all know these children who could
Yeah.
really do with that bit of a boost, but there's no way somebody could put their hand in their pocket every week to pay for some sort of
Yeah.
tuition support. So when you were setting up your social enterprise and it was this kind of idea was blossoming, was it with that in mind?
Exactly that in mind. But I went big. I
Mm,
dreamt big and went across it. But probably initially, my frustration came out of the fact that I work in a British school in Spain. So we do IGCSEs, we do A levels, and then COVID happened, right? So COVID happened. It was a massive hit on education.
mm.
Schools were closed, and as the education minister at that UNESCO told me off afterwards, well, in Spain they were closed less than everywhere else. I upset him apparently in my speech, but um,
Oh,
but we were still closed. We were still, yeah. That
right.
was at lunch. He caught me on that. I don't know whether you know.
Oh,
And he was like,
no, I
"Oh,"
didn't know.
but I said, "Hey, I'm not anti-Spain," but we were still closed, and there was nothing at my school and at international schools to catch up these children who'd missed education. And then I was looking and I was tutoring as well. And I saw the national tutoring program in the UK because, I keep an idea. Now, I know that's got its flaws and I know that
Mm.
didn't work. But at least there was an attempt. We sort of returned back to school and go, all right, get on with it then. You've got IGCSEs and A levels. And you're like, but hang on, these have missed like a year. Oh, we did
Mm.
online lessons. Well, online lessons for 25. Online lessons for one-to-one or small group, brilliant. But online lessons for 25 when teachers weren't ready for it, that was just a waste. So I was so frustrated saying, you know what, there's nothing for the children. I'm now trying to get through A levels and IGCSEs to catch them up on all the work that's missed. And I want to find something. And I thought peer tutoring, that quote that I put at the UNESCO, I don't know if you remember, but don't let perfect be the enemy
Mm.
of good. And I think that is exactly my sentiment.
Mm.
That, okay, well, I can't get them free professors to lecture, and teachers shouldn't be giving up their time for free. I don't agree with that. But peer tutoring has loads of benefits, and getting sixth formers to tutor, and then some teachers giving up, like I'm giving up my time. If we can get people on board and then try and incentivize it in some way in certificates. So it was a complicated old system, but I was trying to get initially the kids at my school, which is a bit of a cop out because it's a private school, but it's not private school by UK standards. We're talking €300 a month. So it's not the richest of the rich.
Mm.
But even then, there were children within my school who still need some help. And because remember, they can't get that help locally because they're done in English. And so what they do is the parents who are desperate and they'll say, I'll get a tutor and it's someone who speaks a bit of English, but they've got no idea what an IGCSE or an A level. And I'll say, well, they're not helping. So I was trying to get The school originally, in answer to your question in a terrible long-winded way, the school. But then I went, but this system works, because it was working. In fact, it was a pain and it was killing me along the way, but I was giving over 1,000 lessons and stuff to the
Wow.
children at our school. And then we connected with others. And then I said, well, when we moved to the IB as well, and we have this in IB, the authentic need. You need to give help to the authentic need, people with an authentic need. And we moved out of COVID and all of that and kept it going. But then exactly the people that you described, that, hang on, there's people who really genuinely can't afford it, and they're not just in the UK, because I'm online, well, around the world, and that inequality is just massive. And so then I've started targeting those groups exactly, and moving away from just the private school. And then it's gone full circle, and right now I'm with this company, World Mobile, that I mentioned, and they connect communities with internet. So like rural areas that don't have internet, that's their mission. And they've just connected like 18 schools in Malawi just last week. So communities
Mm.
that don't have internet, and they've just given them internet. So you imagine those schools, and I'm saying, well, hang on a minute, you connect those schools with internet, then education can just fly. And so that's what I'm now doing with those. So with those 18 schools, World Mobile's given them internet. I'm then actually giving them one-to-one, getting our kids and some volunteers giving lessons with them. But then on top of that, the bit that I've got excited about is then saying, well, hang on, this can like just jump a digital divide. This school that's gone from no internet, well, they're coming straight into having AI, which I'm a big
Mm.
believer in. So they can use ChatGPT because it's free. So they don't need to go through all the stages of Google. They can just go straight into, hey, and so I'm training up the staff and some of the children over the coming weeks in bringing AI into these schools. So
Mm.
yeah, long answer, wasn't it? I don't know whether that answered your question though.
Yeah, yeah. Jack, I've forgotten what the question was, but it was a great answer.
So did I.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about the social enterprise, wasn't it? And then you saying like you dreamt really big with it, and you kind of sounds like you did more than dream. Sounds like you take a lot of action to make it happen. When you collaborate in this way with these other companies, do you find them or do they find you?
They found me, but again, LinkedIn probably.
Okay.
LinkedIn, yeah, that presence has been, as we were saying before, that's just, you just can't do without it. I've tried to be
Mm,
understated and try to be faceless, and it just didn't happen. It just,
mm,
you've got to put a face to it. And LinkedIn I found really, really useful for making
yeah.
those connections. I mean, that was LinkedIn took me to UNESCO, where it's social media and you want to laugh at it, but I found myself with you giving a speech to you. I'm like, what am I doing here? How did I get here? And
Mm.
it was I was found through UNESCO, through LinkedIn. So yeah, it does have a presence.
It is bizarre, isn't it? I said this in a I think in a blog post. I don't think I've done it in a podcast where it was 6 years ago, literally to the day, where I was thinking I don't want to go back to school. Like I was in a really down place, and
Yeah,
and actually went back and said to the school. I think we was back in on 3rd of January that year, and I was like, oh, I really don't want to be here anymore. Like I actually like this the anxiety and
yeah,
just general really wasn't a good place for either of us. Actually, wasn't a good fit.
mm,
And they were like, right, we want you gone then. And they wanted me gone by the end of the week. And so
right,
that was 6 years ago. And then literally 5.5 years later, I'm
mm,
sat in a UNESCO
yeah,
meeting with some incredibly high up personnel ministers from
yeah.
all around the world, thinking, how am I sat here doing this?
It's
Like,
brilliant, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah, I was unbelievable.
yeah,
And that's just people taking a risk and then
yeah,
following through with that really and being consistent with the message. There's a lot, I mean, you could unpick all of that. That would be a whole podcast on its own.
yeah,
So that presence online is taking you places. We were talking just before we pressed record, we were talking about, or you specifically were talking about the whole idea of like investing and in yourself. And you were talking about doing like a master's in business, but you decided with a conversation between yourself and your wife that, do you know what, actually we could put this money elsewhere. Tell us a little bit about that decision making process and
yeah.
why.
Well, so I think actually it ties with what you just said. That I read an article somewhere a couple of years ago, and it said every teacher should have a way out. And I think that's what, see, I love
Mm,
teaching. That's kind of been the difficult balancing bit between running
mm,
this company and doing all those. I'm not actually wanting to be out of teaching. I really like the classroom at the moment, but I think I like it because I've got that way out. And I think that was really important, that whether a teacher, and I agree with that sentiment, that every
Okay.
teacher should have a way out, whether they take it or not. But then when you feel trapped in teaching, because there are good days and bad days of teaching, like you gave that example,
Mm.
but it was probably a bad day. If you've been forced into doing another month, that could have swung around and you could have been flying in I think
Yeah.
that's the nature of teaching. It can be a bad class, a long term. We all have those moments. So I think having that way out and not being trapped was really, really important for me. And that's how I started on that journey. So I wanted to look for this way out. And one of the ways to get to the traditional route is get qualified. And in particular, as I started as a humanities teacher and then moved into business, and now primarily I teach business, just the way it happened at my school. But my degree is geography. And then I was like, well, the obvious step in progression is go and get a master's in business or do a business degree. But then I'm looking at that from Gran Canaria, and I'm not going back to the UK. The winter's too cold, so I love it here. And that means online. If I'm going to do one of those things, it means pretty much doing it online is the best way to do it. And I'm looking at the costs of those things, of an online master's in business, and I'm looking at the value they're adding. And University of the People was the one that keeps popping up, which I don't know much about, so I can't mock it. But I was looking at what the course entails, and then I'm saying this is what, €8,000 or something like that, €8,000 to do a certificate, and you sit online. And I've got friends who are doing, a lot of teachers who are at my school are doing these online courses, and they do it at the odd essay. And I just went, really? Is that going to teach me anything? Is that really going to teach me a lot? So I sat, as you said, I sat with my wife and I said, you know what, I could put this 8,000, I could do a course, run through the traditional and come out with a certificate. And would anyone really care if I've got a master's from University of People at the end? Would that really help my career? Or how about this one? I said, why don't I get that 8,000 roughly, or whatever we're talking? And why don't I start a tutoring company as a social enterprise? And we put that, and I said, I'm going to give free lessons. I'm going to set it up. And that's how we're going to run it. We're going to use that 8,000 to make a loss as it is. How bad is that as a business sense? But I don't mind, because I'm going to see it not as a loss overall, but as personal growth. And
Mm.
it kind of worked. It's worked. So I've given those free lessons. I've spent
Mm.
hundreds and hundreds of hours setting it all up. But along the way, I think the skills that I've learned have just been so far superior to anything that I would have got from doing this online course and writing an essay once in a while, And then that was the conversation we had before, what you learn from actually running a business compared to, I think, what I would have got out of a university course.
Well, look, you said you still do competitive surfing. Do you
I
surf
don't
now?
compete. I still surf, but
Okay.
not competitively
But
anymore.
when you first wanted to surf, you could have watched other people surf and just made notes,
Yeah,
or you can get on the surfboard,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think that I did a business degree,
Mm,
and I did enjoy it because you can sit around all day learning about business stuff and doing your essays and learn. Actually, some of it I loved, some of it I hated.
mm,
And there was a big gap in between that happening or finishing and then me setting up my own business. But I mean, it was largely useless stuff.
mm.
And what works today is not going to be working in a
Yeah,
year's time from now. And the only way to really stay up to date is to keep yourself in the
yeah,
game and actually doing it and learn and have that lived experience in the same way, like when you was falling off your surfboard every 3 seconds,
yeah, yeah.
waiting for the next wave to ride and then falling off again and then do you know you can that's the way that most of us will learn. Not to say that there's not anything to learn from chatting to a pro surfer and getting some tips.
Yeah.
There's definitely some benefit in that,
Mm,
but actually then applying it in your own way is how
yeah,
we all win.
yeah,
So it's interesting. I really love the mindset around this, Jack. This whole like taking a loss, but seeing it as the learning point, and that makes things stronger. And actually, in the longest game ever, because that's what this is, whether it's a social enterprise business or whatever,
mm,
that's how everybody wins, because that's how your potential clients, the ones you haven't even met yet, will win as well when you can go and change their lives, wherever they might be. So what's the state of play right now? What's the next project? What else have you got lined up?
So with regards to Ecmtutors,
Yeah.
or well, it's an interesting. Well, it's not interesting. I'm going to stop saying interesting, because that's for
People
for
go,
the
Jack
audience to judge
lies.
whether it's
Yeah.
interesting, not for me to say. Um, So much going on as the sort of personal brand, as you called it. That is leading me to just be in so many things and so many speaking engagements. I'm speaking at AI Education in February in Bucharest, so I'm going there. I'm going to Texas in the summer to run a course at the ISTE. It's live 2025, a big American conference on EdTech.
Yeah, I
I'm
know that
joining
one.
a Ox. You know the one, do you?
Yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm speaking, invited to
Wow,
speak at
that's
that.
huge, by the way. Just so everybody knows how big that is. That's like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, EdTech show in the whole world.
Well, I don't know much. You see, I'm not into ed tech. This is the irony in this. I kind of hate ed tech, which is so ironic.
You
Everyone
can't.
goes,
You
but you
are.
like AI. And
You
I go,
are
yeah, but
EdTech.
AI isn't
Oh,
ed
okay.
tech, which we're going to come to. We're going to
Okay.
come
All
to.
right.
But it's not tech, is my argument in that. So
Okay.
yeah, so I'm going to that one, and then brilliantly, like a nice thing, I'm joining up with a committee at Oxford University. They're just AIOU, and kind of that's a nice twist in the tale. That I was thinking, do I pay 12,000 to go and do a sort of an online masters? And now Oxford's coming to me and saying, hey,
Yeah.
can you give us some training? And that's kind of a nice smug moment, I suppose, of it
Mm,
making the right call. But then with regards to Ecmtutors, so the big project in Malawi, and that's Africa's really difficult. This has been in the pipeline for a long time, and yeah, that is not straightforward at all. But that seems to be happening. It was going to be Zanzibar. We tried in Zanzibar, and governments got in the way. Now Malawi, and the idea is that's a pilot in Malawi, and it expands into so many other countries around the world. So
mm.
that could be exciting. I also got on the board on like the forum of OpenAI, which is massive. I was super excited about that. So then I was like speaking. They've got this podcast, not podcast, like meetings, online meetings, and so I got an invite to kind of the behind the scenes, and then they've given
Wow.
me some access, early access, some to the OpenAI stuff. So yeah, nonstop. But at the same time, I was kind of priority is still teaching because I'm still a full-time teacher and I'm not
Mm,
senior manager. I am on a full-time teaching timetable of teaching IGCSEs and A levels. And I'm very aware, despite the fact I kind of like to be passionate about everything, that you're only as good as I can't stand and tell other teachers about how to teach if my class are failing. That's really important to me. So that
mm,
has been top priority. And I have to say, this last term, I swapped schools. I didn't say, but I swapped schools just on the island. But I've been surprised how much just teaching has taken up this last half term because it's new groups of kids and I teach A level.
mm.
Whereas at my old school, I was there for 9, 10 years or something, and I already had my reputation. And then so I was teaching the syllabus that I've taught, and it was nice and easy. This year, I've come to a new school, new cynical kids, good, which is great, but I've
Mm.
got to win them over. And so all of these extras, and they don't care, of course. Sixth formers couldn't care. I went to UNESCO as if they care. They couldn't
Yeah,
care.
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and I've got this video online. They just want to take the piss out of it, of course. All of that is coming, that's a come with this reputation, which is anything but cool. That
Yeah.
who's a teacher coming in, oh, he's got a YouTube video. And I'm trying to do a little bit of TikTok, which is way too cool for me, of course. But they're seeing that and so you got to balance it that they're immediately coming in and going, haha, here's the jokey teacher.
Mm,
And I'm like, I'm not actually the jokey teacher, and I'm not the fun one who does TikTok. There's actually a serious thing behind this. And that's again what we were talking about with business studies. It's
mm,
behind the times in the A level that I teach. They haven't when you actually run a business, social media presence, I've just discovered, is everything. Like
mm,
you have to understand algorithms. You have to put your face out there on TikTok and all of those different things. So all of that is a learning curve for me, and so much going on, I guess. Yeah, and Ecmtutors is still happening, um, but no money involved. I just don't want anyone getting confused because I feel I'm too open for attack. Now it's difficult giving free lessons. That is a battle, but I've kind of merged it now into being. I just changed it, in fact, a couple of days ago. But the website now has got sort of two angles to it. One, the peer tutoring, the free lessons, but the other part is AI education. So because I kind of realize I've got enough to say about that, so I'm putting more and more things on the website now, that gives every child, because it meets my objective. That's what I've discovered. That's how I got into AI. My objective was to get every child help outside of the classroom, which of course I was never going to do, but that was the vision to get it. And while I've been doing that, OpenAI and ChatGPT's come along, and I'm going, well, this does help meet the objective. It does do that. So I've combined the two, A person is still going to be better. Let's not get carried away with AI. It's still, if you can get it, but don't let perfect be the enemy of good again.
Mm.
So I'm going, well, okay, I can get some children free lessons, but I can educate the others how to use AI for learning, which it absolutely is. Um, and that can get more help. So I'm trying to get more and more people to the website to see. But again, I'm sharing the website and it's being like, oh yeah, but how much does this cost? And I have to log in. I'm going, no, there isn't. There is no login. Like I put it in a Facebook group, it's going to be not allowed. That's the amazing one. I want to share free resources, not allowed. Self-promotion. I'm going, there's no login, there's no cost, it's free. Just go on and see. Just click on it. Everything is free. But people are cynical, and rightly cynical.
Yeah, I
Rightly
don't know how
cynical.
you convince people. I just don't know because I know I would be the same, I think.
Yeah,
Obviously I know you, so it'd be different. But if you
yeah,
came in, I'd be like, if anybody came in, I've got all this free stuff. I go, no, that's not coming on.
yeah,
Because you just want to protect the space, right? So you
yeah,
kind of almost close boundaries. I think I'm a little bit more open than most,
yeah.
but there's still that element there. So I don't know how you go and convince people about it. It'd be interesting to know what the people listening or watching would think about that as well, because I
Well,
think that
if they find a way, tell me, because I haven't. I've given up on Facebook, to be honest. That's where I went to
yeah,
LinkedIn because I just got blocked. I was
yeah,
like, you know what, free lesson. They went, no, you're not. No, no, you're
yeah,
not. This is, I wrote an article which everyone wanted to read once I got it in a different place, but wasn't allowed. It got 77,000 views. The ISTE published it as well. It
wow,
was massive. But then when I tried to post in the group, the AI group, the next time, they're like, no, it's self promotion. I'm like, well,
mm,
there's no cost to it, and if it is publicizing anything, it's a free
mm,
tutoring to get education to people who need it. Like it's fairly authentic. There's no money. I'm losing money on all of this.
mm.
So that was really disheartening, but you got to get through it. Every time I tried to do something, someone was out there to criticize.
Just to put another flip on this as well, and this always fascinates me because there'll be people who will understand the whole like giving stuff away for free and trying to protect it and not giving stuff away for free, but then themselves will be looking for free stuff.
Yeah.
So, like for example, like this happens all the time. People have got quite well-off-ish businesses, so probably doing quite comfortably £3,000-4,000 a month,
Mm.
but then say, "Oh, I really don't want to pay for Zoom anymore."
Yeah.
But why? Like it's £100 a year. Just pay for Zoom. That's allowing you. It's a tool that's allowing you to make that money.
Yeah.
If anything, it's too cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For what it's allowing you to do in your business. It's just such an easy investment to say, yeah, I'll do that. That can help. If that £100 allows me to make 4 grand a month, and
Yeah.
but then they would not give anything up for free themselves, if you see what I mean. So there's this element of like wanting stuff for free, but
Yeah.
protecting their own thing. And I probably fall into that category quite a bit, actually. I give a lot of stuff away for free, a lot of
Mm.
time, energy, resources, those kind of things within my circle. But I do see, I suppose I sit on the fence. I can see both sides, but I
Mm.
do honestly believe that free is the hardest thing to sell. It always has been.
Yeah, and I learned that as a business
You've
studies
lived
teacher.
it.
It was so depressing. That
Yeah,
yeah, I kind of went,
bless
hang
you.
on, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to set up a business, and I was like, I can't even give stuff away. I
Yeah,
can't
yes.
even. So it was so disheartening.
Okay.
But yeah,
I mean, we spoke before about like how do we squeeze everything into this because there's so much to share. There was a couple of things I want to come back to. Is that premise of teachers having a way out.
yeah,
I really like this because I think and you're right in that in itself could act as a comfort blanket to when the times are hard, you go, oh, do you know what? I don't actually need to like put up with this or have a boundary in place where you can. I wish I'd have had a boundary in place sort of 6 years ago where I could have gone, well, I don't need to listen to that or take that. I
yeah,
can because I've got this other thing that I could potentially go into, and it reminded me of because you don't have to hold everything then because
yeah,
I worked for social services for about 4 years, and we used to have monthly supervision. And
right,
what would happen is you would obviously go out and support families, you'd listen to the hardships and take on board what's happening in people's lives. And it was a heavy load.
mm,
But you knew that when you got towards the end of the month, you'd have your chat with your supervisor and
right,
it was an offload.
right,
Right. So you always had the comfort in place that, okay, that was a tough session with
mm,
that family. That didn't go quite the way I wanted to, or that was a hard conversation. But you weren't just left with it. You knew there was a place to go. And it's a slight nuance. It's not quite the same, but having something else in your life that is a positive or something that's going to bring you joy or maybe even just a different type of energy or vibe towards it than it is to teaching could be really beneficial. That doesn't have to be a business, by the way. That could be it's just something else somewhere. Like for me, in my early days, probably would have been like playing a bit of footy and just letting off steam on a football pitch. But so I really like that. How early on in your career did you set up the ECM?
No, a long time. A long time.
So you,
So I've been
okay,
teaching, what, 17 years, and I set this up about 3 years ago. But I would say, I think, because I teach business studies, so Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
yeah.
GCSE and A level, I just think I fit that perfectly.
Mm,
whenever I teach it, I just go, I am the example of this. And yeah, so in Maslow's, if you remember it, that you've got sort of love and belonging. You've got your physical needs and then your love and belonging. And so I met my partner, what, 8 years ago or something like that. And then, and at that point, I wasn't really, I liked teaching, but I had lots of opportunities for promotion. I worked hard at school. There was, be deputy head. I was never interested.
mm,
I love classroom. I love being in the classroom. I was never interested. And I was quite happy just being in the class. I didn't want to take anything that would take me out of the classroom because I like teaching. Um, but then what I found is that met my partner, Teo, my son, was born, who's probably shouting in the garden. You might be able to hear him. But I got that love and belonging need in a very naff way, that I got those family needs all settled, as Maslow would say it. And suddenly, when he was born, I guess, that I found that I was firmly in that esteem needs, that for the first time it bothered me that when I teach the structure of the organization in the school and I put myself at the bottom and put all the people higher up the hierarchy than me in that organizational structure. And I went, you know what? I'm not too happy being at the bottom. And
mm.
and so it was at that stage that I started to look for other things. And originally I went into the tutoring, just tutoring after school. And I think that's the good thing about tutoring, that it's less of a thankless task sometimes. Because when you're in a school, when you're in a classroom, particularly here in Spain, they're not very keen on gifts. You don't get gifts at Christmas as a
No
culture.
way. You don't come away with bags and bags of like world's best teacher mugs and
Nah,
bookmarks.
don't get anything.
Mm,
So it's quite thankless.
mm.
And then I went in, and you have those bad days. No matter how good a teacher you are, you have those bad days where a kid tells you you've done something wrong, like whatever. We've all had them. But when you have those bad days, I went into the tutoring, and tutoring suddenly, what was good about those tutoring organizations is that you got your ranking, you got your reviews, you got your star rating, which I know are controversial. But suddenly for me, they were kind of validation and meeting those esteem needs. And then I was like, okay, you can up your fee to this, or you've got this rate. All of that, I didn't really care about what I could charge, but what a loser I am. That esteem need really mattered to me. And then it sort of graduated into that I realized I valued the esteem, that when you have a bad day, I go, well, actually, I'm the number one rated tutor in business and blah, blah, oh, told it to myself. That then went into setting up the business. I guess that was an
Mm.
extension of that. And then now it's gone even further in. So when I say giving things for free, I'm not a charity. I set up not as a charity, it's a social enterprise. So I don't fully believe everyone should do things for free. I believe that you should try and help for free, but you should get something out of it. So
Mm.
yeah, I wasn't, when I say free, there is
Mm.
something in it for me. There's the esteem that I wanted, there's the qualifications that I wanted. And the great thing is that to do that, yeah, I'll spend some money on getting free lessons to help, but people should get things out of it. I don't
Mm.
believe just, hey, just give money, give free lessons. What's in it for you? Well, the good of whatever. No, there should be something. So I
Mm.
have got things out of it. And then, that's the esteem, that I have a bad lesson now and I go, well, yeah, it was a bad, and the parents cross with me or whatever. And I go, well, I was just speaking at UNESCO last week. And which, of course,
Yeah, it's insane.
do they care? No, of course
Mm.
they don't. And is it relevant to them? No, it's no good if I've taught a bad lesson. That should be. But it is nice, as you said, to have that kind of way out of going, well, I'm not trapped here and I'm here by choice. And I have got
Mm.
options in my life, because I think that's where teaching is really lonely and really hard. If you
Mm.
feel you're getting a hard time, there's nothing you can do about it and everyone's against you. And no one's saying thank you. Because children are children, and parents are parents, they're tired. At the end of term, you might have had a brilliant lesson, but they're just tired. You know, when you see those children in the summer that might have given you a hard time, if you had that bad period, I'm sure those children, if you saw them 6 years now, would speak very highly of you. It might have been a
Yeah.
bad moment, whatever happened then.
Yeah,
But
agreed.
people are tired, especially in
Yeah.
we've got a rule with my partner's deputy head. We don't speak. And like the week before Christmas after a long term, we don't have anything controversial because we know we're short of patience because it's such a long term, that Christmas term.
Mm.
And it's tense, and children are the same.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you know that stuff, it just makes it easy to make those decisions, doesn't it? Like, actually, let's just give each other a bit of space here and a bit of understanding and a bit of empathy.
Yeah.
We don't need to jump down each other's throats because we've got a much better understanding of where it's all coming from.
Yeah.
There's UNESCO. You told in your talk, you told a couple of stories about some children you'd worked with, which was really powerful. That led into some AI chat, and AI kind of ended up. I don't know whether it did in the sessions that you went to, Jack, but it really dominated the sessions on the second day for me.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, no, it was really good. Some of it quite scary, and like on a personal level, which I'll talk about, and some of it just blows my mind, like the possibilities where we're heading. And I think we met just before Christmas, and you were showing me some sort of behind the scenes stuff, which it just was mind blowing, you know. And I think AI blows my mind all the time anyway. But
Yeah.
what you were showing me was like, whoa, this is next level, and it's here. This is not like 5 years time. This is maybe 5 weeks,
Yeah.
and the power of it is insane. So I'll just talk a little bit about the AI chat that was negative, or I felt was negative, and then put the positive spin on it. There were educational ministers who were saying, right, we want to eradicate tuition, and we're going to do that by the use of AI. So we're going to have like these synthetic tutors tutoring. And I was like, oh, do you know what? I think that does have a place, but I don't think it is all eggs in one basket is going to be the way forward. I think the human touch is always going to be needed for some, and I don't think for everybody. Similar to the stuff that you were talking about, look, we can train these children, and even with the peer mentoring, like show them how they can use
Yeah.
the AI to support learning and lessons, and even support themselves by having conversations with it. But there are going to be some that works with, and some will need something different. And I came away from the second day feeling a little bit more buoyed, because I've been able to share that I think the human touch is going to be really important and remain important, because I feel like something that we are really sort of almost leaving behind if we're not careful. And then you was talking about some, obviously, two lads that you supported. Jack, do you remember what I'm talking about?
In the main speech, I think, because they weren't actually real, because I can't use real names. So I was just giving three examples, but they were just standard examples. There were three children in my class who I'd helped with creating these GPTs, but
That's right.
yeah, that was so. But they were just standard. One ADHD boy in the class, another one who'd come, I can't really remember now, and been bullied at another school, and I think that was probably hit the connection. Maybe that's what. Yeah, so I was talking about three children. One was old-fashioned term, gifted and talented.
Oh,
And I
that's
was
right.
talking about, even no matter how much I think I'm a brilliant teacher, I don't tailor my lessons to that person. That person needs extra help, which is the extra help that both my parents are teachers that I got. So am I right to run with this? Is that what you wanted? A recap of that
Well,
little
I
talk?
think like the idea, because I think this is like one, it's an interesting like take on how you use it, but I think for a lot of us, like we're still passionate about the education of how we can use it, and even like what it's going to or how it's going to impact mainstream education or just education as a whole, right? Whether we put it all into one bucket for now, like education and
Yeah.
tuition, because essentially that's what we're doing still. So to listen to how we can utilize it to support learning rather than see it as this like,
Yeah.
well, no, they're going to do AI, so AI is going to take over. And I think that the way that you spoke about it was, that's what I resonated with. So I know that with the gifted and talented, I can remember that story and it makes sense.
Mm.
I think on different levels as well, I think that's what I really liked. So yeah, give us an overview of those three children.
So you've got a gifted and talented student who goes home, and and I can differentiate my lessons. I think I was very honest in saying when someone comes and observes me, of course I have differentiated worksheets, but the rest of the time when you're on a full timetable, it's just not realistic. We live in this dream world. Whereas, so now I've created GPTs, which are like within ChatGPT, you can create, which I just think are incredible. And if you, that's what I'm sharing, lots of them that I've made on Ecmtutors, if you go and have a look. But I can create these specific little things within ChatGPT, totally free. And I can program it to do a certain task. So it could be always translate it into Spanish, always test them on knowledge skills, always test, but personalize, always explain everything related to Madrid football, I think was the one I was telling you. Because you can just say, when this person talks to ChatGPT, always answer explaining it with the example of Madrid football. And so you can do all of these things. So I can stretch that child, they can go away, they can use it 24/7, and they can get the examples. Then there was another child who, what was the other example? Might have been that one. But I think where it probably was a bit more poignant, I was giving the example of the person who'd come to our school who was bullied at another school and very, very nervous and had limited English because the other school didn't speak English, Spanish, but limited English. And I said, look, what they need is practicing spoken English, but in the classroom, they'd be very nervous to do that. Now you can talk to ChatGPT. You can talk to it like not Amazon style Alexa, actually talk normal time like we're talking. And I think that was what I showed you.
You did, yeah.
Yeah. And now it's got eyes, by the way.
Yeah, this is what you showed me as well, which was
insane. Did I?
insane.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the video. So I showed
Yeah.
you that. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, you
that's
just to give people context on this, like you actually said like, oh, where am I right now? And it told you, and then you
yeah.
turned the camera to face Zoom, said,
Yeah.
who am I talking to? And it read my name, described me, but then you said, now do that in Spanish, now
Yeah.
do that in Chinese, and it was just all instant. There was hardly any thinking time really. It was just
No, it's not. It's automatic. It's,
fluent.
you know,
Yeah.
if there was thinking time, it was because my internet was lagging rather than it lagged. So
Okay.
it's just insane. It
Yeah.
is. But so I mean, so you've got these options, but then I think in my message going to it, which is perhaps where it connected, that I said Drishti was the name. It's not the name. But I said that's all very well and good, of course, that this girl can have a chat with English, but that's not what she needs. She doesn't need a robot to talk to. She's been bullied and she's nervous and she needs that human touch. And I say, so it's not replacing. It's good for some things. It can help with some things, but it's not going to replace the human touch currently, the teacher that invests in interest. But I do say currently, this is a big, scary topic. When you were saying like, where are we going? Nobody knows. We really like, as this is progressing at such a rate. In terms of will it change tutoring? Will it change the classroom? Well, a year ago, you go, don't be ridiculous. You're not going to lose jobs. Dan Fitzpatrick's one of the top guys who talks about this. I don't know whether you've come across him, but he started to kind of, I don't know whether it's change his tune, but he said, don't be naive now. It is going to have an impact. That's brave of him. I might be misquoting him, so I've got to be careful. But I think that was his post recently saying, let's not be naive. Now it is, I was just using it in my classroom at Christmas, just before on the last day, I was moving my class around. And I just held up the camera and I said, okay, evaluate my seating plan and my room and this. And it just gave me this perfect evaluation going, you know what, you shouldn't really have seats there. Your poster display could be updated. You need more children's work. And lesson observation, so much more meaningful than any other teacher who's come in and looked at my classroom. It was just giving me immediate feedback. And so it is scary. But having said that, can it do it? Yes. But will it replace the personal tutor? Well, my message in there, I think, is not overall, because education, I don't know whether it came through, but education in the system we have it is a pretty horrible system. That's what I feel. It's a horrible system where it puts children in rank order. And that to me is the elephant in the room that nobody talks about. And I tried to stress it there. That these GCSEs and A-levels, it's like, oh, let's get everyone up there. But it's not. They face these summative exams that essentially put everyone in rank order to get the best jobs. You get ranked when you do GCSEs, you get ranked when you do A-levels, then you get ranked when you go to university, which you have to pay a privilege for, and first and to thirds, and from Oxford down to whatever low. It's a horrible ranking system. And we can talk about equity and all of these things, but ultimately, someone's got to come at the bottom in the way the world is running, because not everyone, with scarcity in the world, not everyone can have everything. And that's I always feel is the elephant in the room. And then because of that ranking system, when we're looking at the tutoring industry, if we go back to that child who is gifted and talented, what does that parent want? That parent who's got money for this gifted and child. Well, they want their child to have the edge. It's the same reason private schools exist when we talk about equity. I mean, that's unfair that you can pay to get an advance in this system. And so those parents will take any advantage. ChatGPT is free. Everyone can have it. You've got limits on the using, but everyone can have it. Well, if everyone can have it, the only barrier to everyone having it is knowing about it. Hence my mission to get everyone to know about it and put it on the website. Because there's inequality when some teachers say, oh, you shouldn't tell children about it or it's bad. Those children are missing out. But when everyone knows about it and it's totally free, including the children in Malawi that I'm now giving it to, I'm not giving it. They've just got internet. I'm just telling them about it because it is free. When everyone's got it, well, everyone's back on a level playing field. And then you're going to go, well, how do I get the edge? Well, I want the human tutor to explain to get the best out of the. So I don't think tutoring is going to go away. It's not going to kill it off because people are looking for the edge. And on top of that, we want that human touch for the different reasons why people are having tutoring. And as yet, we don't trust robots. It's not what it can do. It's what it's perceived to be able to do. That's the important thing here. And I say until it's, and no one is, I'm not going to trust my 5-year-old to be taught by AI. I love AI. I think it's got loads of risks. I think there's loads, but I'm not going to trust my 5-year-old's education to a robot. Forget it. And I know the things of what it's capable of. But until that perception of it has changed, until it is acceptable to marry, that's what I always talk about. When you can marry an AI robot, which is mental and ludicrous, I think. But if that becomes normal, then perhaps we'll accept it in the classroom.
Interesting.
Because why would we put it? The most important thing we have is our children. We're not going to risk it. So you've got to be absolutely secure before you enroll your child to be taught by AI robots. So that's my take. So I love it, but it's with balance and common sense. Education is the most important thing, and we value our children. You don't want to unleash them on technology. So anyway, there we go.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of that. I mean, I'd not really thought about marrying AI, but now I can't stop thinking about it. Thanks for that, Jack. That sounds really
hey, that's the quote. They say, forget it's coming for your job. It's coming for your girlfriend. It's coming for your boyfriend. and joking aside,
wow.
It's really like this. If you start talking to it, remember is degree in psychology, degree in it knows everything. It's going to be trained. The Google stuff has got infinite. It's going to know everything you've ever written, everything that makes you sad, everything. Wow. It doesn't argue with you. So really, really, really scary futuristic stuff, which sounds ludicrous when I'm saying it. I'm well aware I sound like a nutter, but try it. Like when I'm putting it in front of you and you're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
Hi, Jack. Welcome back. And I say, hey, what ideas for today? Well, it knows all of my, if you want it to remember your history, which I don't mind it remember. So it knows everything that I'm doing. And it was like, well, I'll help you with this. I'll give you ideas with this. Scary. And that's now. We're not talking 10 years in the future.
And I think that really it was hard hitting when, I mean, we was probably chatting for what, 20 minutes, half an hour. And I think I came away and I was just like, whoa, my children were in the room when we were chatting and or in and out of the room. And I was sort of saying to them afterwards, and my youngest two, one's 12, one's 13, saying to them about, did you see that? The eyes thing there, like that's incredible. Like, and I can really see the positive side of it, but I can also feel like that there's a cynic in me that goes, right, yeah, but if someone gets hold of that and then they do the whole facial recognition thing and suddenly it takes on a different, or perhaps it's like, well, most of us probably use facial recognition now to get into our bank accounts and into our devices and other private parts of our life. And there's just an element around it which just also really freaks me out, even though I know it could be used for good, and I probably will use it for good. I know there'll be others who won't, and so you end up like, it's very
and good. You're absolutely right. It is exactly that. Like, I mean, what's the guy who won the prize recently just said he reckons 20% chance it will wipe out humans in 30 years. I mean,
wow.
There is a threat. Everything you're saying, I'm not out here defending it. What I come to it is not from the tech background. I'm just saying it is here. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. I didn't create it. It is here. It is incredibly scary. into the wrong hands. Is the regulation good enough? Not yet. Europe is dragging its feet with regulation, perhaps regulating in the wrong way and limiting. But then you've got Donald Trump teaming up with Elon Musk, and he's deregulating a lot of it, which is great for the progress for the videos coming out. But at the same time, you're going, wow, this is such scary technology.
So
I mean, when it's
fast,
super intelligence, that's what they're heading for. They're aiming for it being more intelligent than us.
yeah. It's like
Uh,
you say, actually, the genie keeps coming out of the bottle, right? The
yeah.
next one, the next one. And I think someone else, I think even Sam Altman was saying it about like slowing it down, like
Oh yeah,
actually
yeah.
do.
So they originally, like a year ago, they all got together to sign this committee, this forum to say stop. Google didn't release their stuff originally, so
Hmm,
OpenAI released it. But once what they've done is they've triggered this war. The OpenAI did it. They've taken out Google. They've put a hit. So Google said, "Well, okay, we've got to release stuff." And now we're in this battle between them. And that's why it's all flying out. Like the end of this year has just been ridiculous because now
hmm.
Amazon's coming onto the scene. You've got Elon Musk with Grok 2 coming onto the scene, and then you've got China in this war. Like it's war with
Big.
releasing these updates.
Wow.
But China's just released this one that's open source. So open source means that kind of anyone can, you don't have to lock it in. They've said this is how you make it. So anyone can create their own version. Great for keeping it free and cheap and various things, but it's just war. Like you
Mm.
can't stop it now. That's yeah, important. When I talk about it, I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate because it's here. I'm passionate for using it for good. If someone said, "Shall we sign a thing to put it all, get rid of it?" Then I would give it some thought.
Mm.
Maybe and I think most people would, but that's not an option. That it's just not going to
No,
happen.
it's
It
not going
is
to.
here. So education is the system, and that's why I think teachers have a huge and the attitude of teachers of like, I'm going to ban it in my class. You can't ban it. That's the big problem here. You can't ban it. It's here. It's ingrained in not just on chat. It's now come to WhatsApp. You've got a number. I don't know whether if you know that. Have you seen
I,
that one?
I think you were telling me about this, or somebody else was.
I shared it on LinkedIn. You might have seen it. So
Okay.
they're coming for everyone's market. So it's now got a phone number. So you can just put in ChatGPT on in your phone, and then if you've got a question, just WhatsApp it. Totally free.
Wow.
Totally free. If you're in America, you can phone it.
Oh, so you
So you
have a
can
chat.
just phone it for a chat. So for free. So you think so? How do you ban that? And then we've got the glasses coming along. That's going to be coming out. So the glasses that have all of this integrated
Mm.
into it. I mean, mind blowing. What is going? And I think teachers need to know about it because teachers need to be educating about it, about the risks, the flaws, and all of those things, and controlling it, regulating it. But what I was interested at UNESCO was wow, there was so little knowledge from there were important people there, and they just didn't seem to be aware. From little old me going, hang on, have you seen? And that's what I was doing. I was just taking out my phone and they're making decisions. It was a policy briefing. I'm going, but do you not realize what it can do? And I remember one of the big guys at the end said, so are you saying it can do their homework? I'm going, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, really can do their homework. It not
And
only can do their homework, it can do all of your masters. And that's universities got a big crisis because
mm,
you're looking at research papers and things like that. I mean, doing an online degree, if I had done that on the masters, honestly, I could do it in seconds now with not because I'm clever but because OpenAI with a tiny bit of understanding, it can you set me those assignments that are done out of test conditions. It can do it in seconds. And that takes us back to, old style exams. That's what our school, we don't, anything that's being graded is being done in the exam conditions. Because if you send it home, then of course they can have access and it can devour whatever you give them. So yeah, but
so
that's another session. I
fascinating
do a whole
because
session
again,
on.
you're right. I want to be opening up this door just slightly. I can see how it could be really powerful at master's level, at also its degree level as well for research. I still need to be careful, but you could put together the research and the readings just through ChatGPT or any AI that could do the research that then you could then use in your writing. I think the tricky thing is if that writing's then done outside of test conditions, it's just going to be done by a computer, isn't it? It's going to be done by the
Well, why
AI rather
wouldn't
than.
you? Why wouldn't you? This is my argument that I go on about in these meetings. So the claim would be, it would be so IB. I don't know whether you heard, but I had a bit of an attack of IB in the briefing. So IB still have a coursework element, which is a hefty amount of it. It's not called coursework; it's called extended essays and IAs. And they think they're forward thinking, but they still have this 25% that is done at home. not done in test conditions. Most of Britain has moved away from coursework. I get the idea behind coursework is fantastic, but the reality of coursework is, I think it's really unfair. One of the things with the tutoring, that I had coursework. My parents helped me. Of course they did. My parents are teachers. You know, if you instill people to value education, if you want children, and I spend all day going, education is important, then they want to do well. The toughest class I've ever had is when I realized the class didn't want to cheat. Now, that's great for integrity, but they didn't want to cheat, not because of integrity, because they didn't care the outcome. I'm like, wow, I'm losing them. If I haven't instilled it's important to know this stuff and to do well academically, then I'm failing. So if you've instilled them the interest in valuing academia, well, why wouldn't they get the help of AI? And you say, well, integrity. Integrity is what they're like. Well, where's the integrity of a private school that's 30,000 a year? Where's the integrity? Oh, well, the integrity of going off so I can afford to go to America where it's 70,000 in fees. Where's the integrity in that? You know, we don't have integrity in this system. And therefore, if it was me, if it was my son doing it and he's got coursework, I'd say absolutely you use AI because the others are going to be doing it. That shouldn't be the case. We need to be testing in a system where that's not an option, the summative.
So this actually comes back though, Jack, as well, doesn't it, to the ranking system?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So because the system isn't really fit, we have to fit with that system. And this is this is an outcome, just an outcome of the system. Okay.
So you've got parents that have paid what, $1 million over 12 years of school. And then they come to their final summative, like the kids that summarizes to get them. So they've clearly valued that ranking system. The whole life they've put their kid, they've paid their money. And then me being a teacher at a private school, I'm meant to go, by the way, don't use this tool that can get you a top grade because of integrity.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
But what about the $1 million I spent? But don't do that because it's not very, but it doesn't make any sense. And therefore it's a flaw in the system. Wow. I agree we should have integrity, but our system isn't really based on that. And therefore, get it out. It's got to be in exam conditions. They've got to be without a computer. And that's controversial in the AI circles as well. They're going to call me draconian and all the rest of it. But I just don't see an alternative there currently, because if it's there,
is this
can do it?
Jack, we mentioned before we pressed, literally just before we pressed record, about that difference between what we have in education and what's actually happens in the real world. So business studies compared to what it's like to run a business, doing an MBA compared to what it's really like running a business, those kind of things. So within education, I'd imagine within that open AI board that you've got a lot of people from different industries involved. So if you was a CEO of a conglomerate, it would make total sense to go, let's get AI in because this is insane. Right, we're going to be able to do this, this, and this. If our competitors are going to be doing it. If we don't, we'll be falling behind. But yet, what we're saying is that that's okay for them in industry, but we wouldn't be allowed to do that in education. And so we're going to have this gap where, and I think there's a skills gap anyway. The skills gap, I think, has been there for decades. But from what we actually teach in school, a skill based, not just academia, but I do mean skills in general, and what they need when they go out to the real world and get their jobs, whether that's a graduate job or not, it doesn't matter. Is there a danger of, if we don't follow this path and figure it out at the primary school, secondary school, further higher education level, that gap's just going to widen? Are we not preparing our children and young people for life outside of education?
I'll go future. I wrote an article on this, and it's again going to sound like I'm nonsense and futuristic, but this is my hope, that I think that perhaps the best gift AI could give us with regards to education is that it could get rid of the ranking system. Like, that's what I would hope for. And that sounds stupid, but with you see the advancement. So if you think about why you need a ranking system, that if you've got a job, if you're an employer and it's a good job and you're prepared to pay a lot of money, you've only got one position available, then you need a way to filter the 10,000 applicants or 8 billion people in the planet down to one person. And the way we do that is you can't interview everyone. It's too expensive, the process, so that you get a CV, which is one page of an advert. And that
Yeah.
goes, right, this person's got the degree from Oxford, they're in the yes pile. This person hasn't got a degree, they're in the no pile. But essentially, that's what you're doing. You're getting that ranking system. Well, the reason you're doing that is because a human, it would take too long to interview everyone. It would take too long to look through papers. Well, that can now be done in a second by AI. Like already that can be, now there's flaws in that because it has bias, but the bias comes from humans. There's a whole other thing to talk about. But if you think that computers can do that, can we get rid of the need for ranking? And then education becomes purely formative. That's what I would love. That's
Like
what
the
I would
dream.
love.
It's a
But you
dream.
don't need to have summative exams because they're really the enemy. And I'm able to say that's someone else's. That's how I get my children not to cheat with AI. I say, look, you can cheat, but I'm only your helper because you do external exams and I'm not allowed in there. But you are heading towards a summative done by someone else
Mm.
to put you in rank. I'm only here to help. If you cheat on your homework, you're cheating your ally. I'm your helper. But if we can get rid, because that summative is just horrible. It is horrible if you think about it. We put children at the age of 15 and then 18, and then the world is all ranked by this yes and no pile. Could AI get rid of that? I mean, feasibly, why not? So maybe that, and then you can just go, right, education, forget summative. It's all about formative stuff. It's all about speaking and that skill gap. I completely agree. That was one of the reasons I set up Ecmtutors with the
Mm.
peer tutoring, because that's those soft skills that come from speaking, that come from
Mm.
interacting. I think so many of those can be filled by getting a child. And that's what I found. I got 18-year-olds and said, right, you're going to teach a child in Africa. How much do they learn from that more than just on the exam? And I don't think exams are all terrible. I'm not, I know lots of people are like anti A level and said it doesn't teach any soft skills. I think it does. I don't think it's all knowledge. I think there's other systems that are, but I think there's plenty of critical things. There's plenty of analysis in there. They're done as well as they can be. I'm not anti the exams,
Mm.
but they don't fit everything. And therefore, combining it with getting those soft skills like presenting, we were talking about before. That's what I was saying, that
Mm.
I used to laugh 5 years ago. I would laugh when the child, not laugh to their face, but I'd be cynical when a child said he wanted to be a YouTuber or TikTok. What a load of rubbish. But then since running a business, I've just seen, wow, this is so important. And who is teaching a child how to make an engaging? They've learned it themselves. And we were saying these YouTubers that are just incredible, how they get these hits, how they understand algorithms. And I'm the business studies teacher teaching A level. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about algorithms. I mocked TikTok. And then suddenly you run a business and you're going, oh my, how do I get hits on TikTok? How do I set up how do I speak in 1 minute? How do I get a hook in? None of those words exist in business studies A level. And I'm saying you're going to present, and I'm having children presenting
Yeah.
20-minute
Yeah.
presentations
Yeah.
with a PowerPoint. Forget it. You don't do those things anymore.
Mm.
You need to learn. So now all my lessons are saying, right, you're going to do a TikTok, not but imagining it's a TikTok style. You've got to engage me in 1 minute.
Getting them to do like
One
1 minute videos, Jack.
1 minute,
Get
because
your hooks
people
in.
don't listen. As
What
as
hashtags you're going to use?
which in a classroom, of course, then the children go like, he's trying to be cool, and I go, yeah, and which is where my reputation has been
Yeah,
different,
sure, I get that. Yeah.
because it's, he's trying to be cool, or what's the the trending phrases in skibbity, that I
Oh,
said
don't. Yeah.
skibbity.
Oh.
And of course that was it. Then they just absolutely roared with laughter, thinking I'm trying to be cool. But I was teaching about advertising and saying, if you can get skibbity, what would it fit with an advert? And they went, oh, I'm this cool teacher. But I wasn't trying. I was like, but that's got value. It's got
Mm.
huge value, that we're kind of turning our nose up, and academia is turning its nose up, and it's incredibly important. I suddenly have to know about these things running a business, have to know TikTok, have to know YouTube Shorts, all of those different things.
Mm.
And I'm terrible at it, but I've had to learn. But
Mm.
children have been teaching themselves, it seems, because I don't know the courses that do a good job, because any course that was set up in academia, it would be out of date. If you devised a university course, even if you were future thinking, by the next week it would be out of date, because the
Yeah.
algorithms are constantly changing.
Mm.
So maybe I'm being too harsh on academia, but it just feels totally out of touch.
Yeah.
So
No, I take your point about the soft skills being there in the A levels. There's still something amiss between what we do there and at uni, and then what's kind of needed at industry level. That's what's coming out of industry. It's like, look, actually, we're getting these people in, and they're really clever, but we can't get them to do a presentation, not working as a team. They're not being able to communicate properly. So we're going to have to do all of this new. I've got friends who work in teaching and learning in some big corporate companies, and they had to devise new training
Yeah.
for their graduates to come in and do. Before it was all like basically induction based stuff. Now it's like, well, they're induction, but there's also they've got to do the team building skills. They've got to, all this new stuff that's had to sort of be put in place over the last sort of 15 years or so. So what we're saying is that there's still a space for something like, whether it's the ranking system that needs to be adjusted, or whether it's this leaning into AI to do some of this work so it's less biased, even though there is bias in there, which is from us by the sound of it, the way it's written. But there's still this sort of coming together of these two, I don't even know what to call them really, like this AI explosion that's going to happen over the next year. That's not going to slow down, is it? It's just going to go to different places. But also this coming together towards education, and we've got to find a way to marry them both up together, which is where someone like yourself comes in, who has access to people who are designing it and coming up with new ways of using it. I suppose I realised the time, and I'm thinking, well, I know we could go on easily for another hour without even breaking a sweat. Well, just needs to do a part 2 at some point, Jack. There's someone like yourself who is now like being recognised, and I know you were saying earlier on about like, let's put expert in there, but you are the expert, because defining an expert is somebody who knows a little bit more than somebody else, right? And you know a lot more than what I would say your traditional teacher would know. Hence why you're getting invited to go and speak around the world. How do we, let's make this the final question, how do we manage to reach more teachers, more tutors? How do we get them to understand the power of how we can use it more and within education? What do we think the answer is to this over the next kind of 6 to 12 months?
I mean, it will come for them. Like
they're just going to,
there's too much money.
Hit them. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's these are big companies which we should be cynical of. So they're hitting you. That's their battle. They're figuring out how to get it to the audience. So putting it on WhatsApp, Google, getting it. So it will come to them. But the training that I do is based around, because I started by saying it's nice for you to say expert, but the training I do is based around me not being a computer. It's being humanities, and not liking EdTech. I don't like EdTech, and I think that's been its curse. That's what stopped it being embraced by most teachers, I would say, because it's been seen as another piece of EdTech coming in. And I'll speak for myself, but but I hate it when EdTech gets introduced into school. I hate it, because usually what's happened is that an EdTech company with some very clever tech person has got a great marketing team, sold an amazing pitch to a headmaster or a board of governors who don't teach on a regular basis, who don't really like computers themselves, get sold a great pitch, and then force it down on the staff below. And they go, you're going to use it, which has happened to me a couple of times, not with AI, but they don't really know how it works. And they've paid some money for it. And it was like, now you're going to rechange everything because it's great, because it'll make teaching fantastic. And it doesn't. It just absolutely upsets everything, and you're a bit of a testing ground. A lot of these tech companies, they put in stuff that's not really finished and then ask for feedback. We had one at a school I was working. It just drove me mad. It never worked. And they're like, okay, we'll write off to them. And well, I'm doing your product testing here with children. So I think teachers, or many teachers, myself, cynical of tech coming in. But the difference is that this is not tech. AI doesn't act like tech in any way, shape, or form. It isn't. That's my myth, and that's what I was mythbuster. I said we could finish on the 10 things, but there's probably not time. But that's number one.
We should try and squeeze some in, Jack.
We'll try and squeeze some in.
Yeah.
But it is not tech. It is trained on natural language. trained on that. So you don't need to know anything about coding. I fixed my computer the other day. It broke. I don't know. I mean, I've learned a bit of coding from running a website, but I haven't got any training in anything. But I fixed the computer. Literally, I took the back off my computer and I took a photo of it. And I said to ChatGPT, this has stopped working. Why? I didn't go XY2, whatever. I went, this has stopped working. Why? And and then it said, well, I don't know. Can you zoom in? I zoomed in and I fixed it because you use natural language. You don't use like, well, left click on the cursor. You now speak. And they got it wrong when they pitched it originally. The ChatGPT, they talked about prompting, which is my pet hate. And lots of people will say, oh, you should. The word prompt confuses people. It's not prompting, it's communicate. It's called Chat GPT, not prompt GPT. People started by prompt engineering and going, well, if you put role and blah, 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 and you write, so that's all rubbish. And they say, oh, it's rubbish now. No, it was rubbish from the start. That's actually what got me some clout with ISTE. I wrote and said, it's nothing to do with writing one nice, neat, succinct. It's two-way communication. It's you say, I want help. It says, what do you want help with? I would like some help with. You talk to it. And the more you use natural language, the better the output will be because it's trained on natural language. So therefore, because of this, because it's trained on natural language, another article that's trending at the moment that I shared is 13 reasons why teachers are the experts. And they are. If it's trained on natural language, you think of your average computer technician. You think of the experts at university, the people who created it, the ones that I'm in the meeting. What are they like as communicators? The answer is most of them aren't great as communicators. Whereas teachers, if you can communicate with 25 4-year-olds on a Friday afternoon or get 25 17-year-olds interested in financial documents on a Friday afternoon or a Monday morning, and you can get them to understand that, you can definitely get AI to understand you. So teachers are expert communicators. They do all of the things that you need, and therefore teachers, tutors should be leading the charge. And that's it. So I don't claim to be good at tech. What I say is that what my background is, and I'm not a special teacher at all. It's just that most other teachers haven't realized that. And that's why I can write these articles. And I feel like I'm on borrowed time before the rest of the teachers catch me up and go, hang on, yeah, you're just having a chat, aren't you? Okay, I'll make all of these things. All the things I'm creating, all these GPTs, I'm not creating them with code. I'm just going, I want you to create a resource for a person that doesn't speak English you just talk to it. And the more you talk, the better the output. So when teachers cotton on to that, wow. But at the moment they're caught by thinking, oh, but I'm not technical. There is no technical. It isn't. It isn't. There is nothing technical in it. If you got the person who designed, well, that's the intro. When I'm on these forums, when I was talking with the top, they've got this education sector, the top, and I was saying it does this, and they're going, does it? They don't know because it's not programmed in a way of they've told it to do things. It's learning, so they don't actually know what it can do. And you go, well, yeah, if you ask it to do this, it can do this. It speaks this language. Oh, right. So they've sort of released it. But the people who are the experts, who are leading the way and they're using it, are the best communicators. Ethan Mollick's a really good one to follow. And he's not tech per se. He's an entrepreneur. He's a business. He's at one of the universities. But just a good communicator and creative. So there we go. Anyway, I drifted. Do you want to do the
let's
10
do it.
misconceptions or pick some of them? And see whether you might say, yeah, I knew that. Oh, this is
someone just pick a few.
Pick a few. Okay. Yeah. AI is only for saving time.
Oh no, because it takes me a lot of time as well. I'm going to say false.
Yeah, they're all false. They're all misconceptions.
Oh, right, okay.
So, but in my opinion, other people would disagree. Other people would, but these are my pet hates where people get it wrong. People go, "Oh, using AI is cheating. It's only for saving time." I think that's the biggest thing that teachers need to understand. It's got two uses, as I called it. And again, the article I triggered. But two uses. Think of it in terms of using it for efficiency sometimes and for efficacy the rest of the time. Most of the time, I'm using it to make me more effective, not save time. You can talk to it for an email. For low-level tasks that you don't really need, then I can say, well, speed me up, send an email. If it's low level. But most of the time I'm not using it. I'm using it as a thought partner, a collaborator, where I'm saying, here is my speech. Act like a member of the audience. what do you think of this? Which bit is boring? Where are they going to lose interest? And it's going to give me a two-way back and forth. And that isn't about increasing my efficiency. That takes me way longer, way longer. But it makes the output I produce better. And that's really where I'm excited in education. And that's what I'm getting at with children. It's not about, yeah, you can cheat with homework, but you can cheat with a pen. You can copy with a pen. You don't blame the pen when someone copies homework. It can be used to cheat, but it can also be used to increase the efficacy, make people more effective. And that's where I've learned how to code websites and things like that, because it's taught me those things. It's improved my public speaking. I don't do any writing now. It never writes it for me when it's important, unless it's low level. I never get it to write. I get it to look over what I've written and give me feedback and say, what do you think, as a thought partner? So there we go. It's not only for saving time, would be one. I don't know how long we got. Like, should I pick another one or not?
Let's do a few more.
All right. Well, I've already said it. AI is a tech skill and needs to be taught by technical experts.
Yeah, well, do you know what? This is really interesting, because this was the other big thing that I learned from you when we were away in Paris, was that it's the language model use language, because I'd very much gone down the prompt engineering pathway. And so I was very much like, act as a thing and do this and do that. And then you'd still get an okay result. And ever since we were away, which I can't remember, was it October, November? I can never remember.
Yeah, something like that. October, yeah.
Now I don't use the speech that much. I don't have it on my phone, so I tend to just sit on my laptop. So I tend to just type in, but still use chatty language now.
Right.
And it's so much easier, and actually it's a flow rather than just getting like one answer. You're now going, and it's asking opinions as well. Like you're saying, like, what do you think of this? If you want something extra, let me know. And I'm like, oh, actually, yeah, this bit I like, and it's just. Yeah, it's just, I feel like I'm interacting with it in a different way, and it's a lot more. I might be on it longer, but the output's much better and more me-like.
Yeah, exactly. You can just pick up on something. You can get the chat on your computer. If you can now download OpenAI ChatGPT to your computer, and then that gives you access to the chat. Just in case you want it.
Great. I do want that.
Yeah. So if you go on their homepage, you can download it, and then you've got the chat on your computer.
Like it's a desktop app now.
Desktop app now. Okay. Yeah, it came out about 2 weeks ago.
All right, excellent. Wow.
Loads of other things. So yeah, so that would be along those lines. That was it. It's not the new Google search. So AI is a myth. It's the new Google search. No, it's not. It's not used for that. Google is one way, and it just gives a list of things. This is two-way communication, and you're not really using ChatGPT in that way. You're not looking up facts. That's where people get it. Oh, it hallucinates. It does. It gets things wrong. But you shouldn't be using it for that. If you want to look up facts, you want to go to other things like consensus and perplexity. There are other things. If you want to swap Google like for like. Now it's just released that you've got to search. It can search the web, and you can get sources, so it'll hallucinate less. So they're coming for Google. But you shouldn't be. That's, again, the mistake. Most people didn't like, because they thought you use it like a Google. It's a completely different thing. It's not a Google. It's for talking back and forth. It's not for if you want to know what percentage of people do something, go to Perplexity would be better. Don't go to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is for getting your piece of writing and going, what do you think? Let's have a chat about it. It's intelligent. It's two-way communication. So a lot of people use it wrongly there. Adding to that, another one, it's on the same vein. AI produces low quality rubbish. That's the misconception.
Yeah, that's not what I've experienced. Can I also add into this? I'll get your opinion on that whole, like, it's only as good as the input that you give it.
Exactly.
Is that kind of true?
Well, so that has come from it was first released 3.5 chat, because of course OpenAI generative AI, there's more than ChatGPT, but that's the one most people are familiar with. So let's talk that. But the first 3.5, most people for the longest period of time, when it all exploded, teachers came on and they tried 3.5 and they used it like a Google, and yeah, it was pretty average. But what we're on now is 4.0. And it's got nothing to do with it. I mean, it's so much better. And what's exploding coming along the way is even better, what they're releasing. And it problem solves, and it couldn't do maths, it can do. So to start with, they thought the output was low because they'd used that free 3.5 version. But this is what I put on the poster. I said, low quality rubbish. The interactive nature of AI means that poor output is simply unfinished output. Skilled users will keep interacting until the
Mm,
output is at the standard they find acceptable. And I think that's a good way to think about it.
mm,
If your output is bad, it was acceptable to go, and lots of people still do it in my school, lots of teachers, and I get it, rightly so, but they go, it's rubbish. Look at what it produced, or look at what this kid produced. 2 years ago, yeah, you could get away with that. Now, I feel you should be a bit embarrassed. If you're holding up going, look, it wrote this, that's a little bit like holding up an essay and going, look at what this pen wrote. You're going, you wrote it. Like you haven't,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, you put in, write me
yeah.
an essay, it wrote an essay. Then you're kind of showing your ignorance because what the answer is, well, why did you leave it there? I talk about there's a fine line actually between the AI cynic and the AI expert. They're actually the same thing, which is controversial. So you think of that critical teacher in the classroom, in the school, who really hates it, because we've all got them, and I've got them at my school. And whenever I start the training, the first thing I do is I get a poor piece of output, and you have that cynical, and then they put it, and you see someone reading, like, and I play dumb, and you see them rolling their eyes, and I say, well, what's the problem? And they go, what's the problem? And I go, well, yeah, explain it to me. It looks good to me. And they list off. So the English, it's good when it's an English teacher. They list off, like more complicated stuff than I understand, like the syntax, the blah, 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 blah. And I go, great. And I'm
Mm,
recording it. And I go, all that feedback, and it makes all those corrections. And you
mm,
go, there you go. So the
mm,
better, if you've got no skill in English, this is why it doesn't get rid of its skill in English. If you can't identify those problems, then it stays as that output. But if you're an expert in being, if you can pick out why it's bad, all you have to do is tell it and it will fix it. So that's where it's unfinished. So that cynical person is actually the expert, because they go, that's rubbish because of this. And I go, yeah, but don't tell me, tell it. And when you tell it, it fixes it. So yeah, so bad output is just unfinished output, I would say.
really, really quick, like
Go
bit
on.
of a story here. Like when I first I heard about it, there was a 3.5,
Yeah.
and I was working for an EdTech company. Sorry, Jack, at the time. And we wanted to move away from what we were doing, or keep doing what we was doing, but then move towards doing something around reading and comprehensions and stuff. This was just as COVID was hitting, and we had the platform to make it really easy for schools to access. So it was more about the fact that we can make it really easy rather than making a business out of it.
Right.
And I was like, well, look, I've just been playing around with this thing. It looks incredible. I reckon I could get it to write comprehensions.
Mm.
And that was exactly what I found. So maybe because I was a cynic, and my English skills aren't really great either, but I did understand the level of which we were trying to support. So very much key stage 1 and then lower key stage 2 at the time. So I was asking it to create very specific comprehensions based on stuff that was to do with our business.
Yeah.
And it wasn't amazing back then. You could get like a very basic story, but I could often improve it by going, the beginning wasn't amazing. Can we add some detail in there? I want more character description, or I want more setting description, or I want more of this. Or if it was upper key stage 2, I'd be like, I would like specifically some examples of year 6 grammar. So let's add in some brackets and some dashes. Let's make sure there's some apostrophes, make sure, that kind of thing. And it would do it, but it was still, I'd say back, because this is going back a fair while now, 2 years?
Yeah.
It was still clunky in the way it read. The readability wasn't amazing. I haven't tried that since.
You'll be amazed.
Really, so I'm definitely going to go and have a go at that.
Yeah, so another one of the myths on there, that you can detect AI use. No, you can detect bad AI use.
Oh,
You
okay.
can't detect good AI use, because
Yeah.
it's a mix. How could you possibly? The detectors are nonsense. I wrote an article in the Times about that. It's just like they don't
Jack, this
work. They're
isn't.
a
So you
con.
hold on. You wrote an article in the Times about this. Is insane. So you're just, so this personal profile of where it's grown over the last 3 years is taking you all over. This is insane, isn't it? I mean, look, this is slightly an aside, because what I talk about in like the courses that I run or workshops is like, look, get yourself out there, get your face in front of your business, because amazing things amazing things can happen.
Yeah.
Wow. And this all comes from you just sharing this like passion for it on
I
LinkedIn.
think it's into and luck that, as I say, I think I probably got ahead of this AI because I was using it, and
Mm,
because, as I said, I've just figured out that it was chatting on day one. I figured out that this is not prompt engineering, and I figured it out with my kids by being in the classroom. I did an experiment. I'm aware of the time, so let's not. But I did an
Yeah.
experiment on early days. And I said, okay, you can use ChatGPT for your homework. It was a geography year 8 class. This is the one that was in the ISTE. They published it and it went massively viral. But I genuinely, I said, your homework, you're going to research the effects of global warming, right? And I said, you can use ChatGPT for your homework to write it. And then when they came back into the classroom the following week, I did what every kid, they had a meltdown because I said, okay, now a test. Okay. And I said, really important in this, that I want you to print off your chat, your back and forth, which is a really good technique that teachers haven't caught on to, that you get them to share chats rather than output. So you screenshot, although you've actually got a share button on it. So most of the time lots of the time I'm marking their chatting back and forth with OpenAI, with ChatGPT. But I took them in and I wanted to see it. And they broke down in my class, genuinely they did. They broke into 3 categories. There was, I've got to try and remember it. This is right when it first came out, like a year and a half, 2 years ago. But they broke into 3 categories. The first categories were the lazy ones who just said research global warming. And it gave like this is back in 3.5 days, a rubbishy answer. The second category were like my really clever ones, the really studious, hardworking. And they'd gone online, they'd researched all about prompt engineering, and they'd put role and specific, and they gave a very succinct, nice, like paragraph about the effects of global warming. It was great. And then there were the third, which we've all got. They were like the bickerers, the one that liked to argue with me in the class. And they just got on with it, like the entrepreneurial ones, I would say. They'd got on and they'd gone, tell me about global warming. And they said it was this. And they went, no, it isn't. And they just had fun and argued back and forth. So I had one that had given me like 2 pages of nonsense, another one, a succinct good page, and another one, like 7 pages of arguing back and forth. I then said, when they came into the class, I said, right, you've got a test, which they hated, of course. Didn't warn them about it. I said, books away, you've got a test, the effects of global warming. The lazy ones, of course, wrote nothing. They hadn't learned anything. The hard-working ones, absolutely bitter, all going to phone their parents, get me sacked because I've given a test, you know the sort. And they wrote like a line, didn't really know anything. The bickerers, genuinely, the third group, they asked me for more paper. They'd asked me for more paper. And I went, hang on, this is a learning tool. So by interacting, those groups, they hadn't intended, I didn't tell them it was a test, they weren't doing, but they'd actually learned a massive amount from this. And that, I wrote up that article, sent it to ISTE, and I realized from that on, prompt engineering isn't where we should be using it in education. If you're looking for efficiency, you want to just speed yourself up, then maybe prompt engineering has a place, but I don't teach that. Computer teachers can teach that. But if you're looking to use it as an educational tool, you're looking at them communicating, and that is a learning tool. And that has stuck with me. So I just got ahead of it with that. That gave me a little bit of a push. I figured that out, and then I've always just waged war on everyone who said prompt. I just wrote articles, don't prompt, chat, and then that's just kind of snowballed from there. And I tested other things along the way. Sorry, too long.
Do you know, I do the same as you when I answer questions. Like because it's important to give the context around, and I think you do that every time. I definitely will book you in again because there's more to it. And actually, I think it would make sense at some point anyway. One, because the AI in particular is just traveling at an insane speed. And what you're sharing right now will be normal in 6 months' time. And this race that you're talking about, this war, I call it a race, it's a war, it sounds like, between these tech companies. It's only going to accelerate faster from now. So in 6 months' time, it'd be interesting. I'm not saying we do it in 6 months' time, but it'd be really good at some point in the future to say, right, where we're at, Jack, what's going on? And also it'd be good to just stay in touch anyway, because of your other projects you've got going on around the world, which I know there'll be loads of people listening who'll be really interested and fascinated about the way you're using tuition and education as a whole, just to change places like in Africa where they've never had internet before, and then helping them to, I suppose, capitalize on the 30, I'll take 20 years, 30 years of us learning how to use it. They can just go in with all the good stuff where they don't have to wait for things to,
Exactly.
work. And just be amazing. Jack, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. Sorry if I bored anyone. Sorry if I offended anyone. And,
not any part of this has been boring. I can guarantee you that, which is why we definitely want to get you back on at some point in the future. Jack, actually, from a heartfelt space, actually really inspirational. Like I felt that at UNESCO. I think that when you see good people doing good things, I think that's, you want to make a connection with them. And that's what I felt when I met you in Paris. So
likewise, that's why we're staying in contact. So,
thank you, mate.
Fantastic.
Right, cool. We'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Thanks so much.